Hello and welcome back to week number 5 of CNMS 165. Today we're going to be using Adobe Dreamweaver. So to locate Dreamweaver on your computer, you can go to the Start menu and start typing Dreamweaver. If you do not have Dreamweaver on your computer, you're still able to do everything within Notepad. However, Dreamweaver is a great program to use. So once we've opened up our Dreamweaver page, we want to create an HTML file. We see that Dreamweaver will fill in a lot of information for us, such as our document type, which declares what type of HTML we're writing in, our HTML, which says what our rules are set from, our head, our metadata, and our title. When we go into the body, we are going to be able to write just like normal. However, there are some cool things that Dreamweaver has done for us, such as if we start with a bracket, it will say everything that we could possibly write. Pretty amazing, right? So, what we need to do now is create a style sheet. So to do this, we'll go to File, New, and we'll go to CSS. Hit Create, and we have now created a style sheet. Our goal, however, is to get our style sheet and our index file connected. To do this in Dreamweaver, we will save our style sheet by going to File, Save As, locating the folder that we're saving everything into. So for this example, I'm using week number 5. I'll create a new folder, and I'm going to call that Assets. Then inside there, I'm going to do style.css. I'll then go over to my index and save that as well. So for this, I'm going to save it outside of the assets folder and just say index.html. Now that I've saved my index.html, my goal is to get my index and style sheet to be connected. So I must do this within my head. I'm going to do my bracket and start typing link. And we see that Dreamweaver has already finished that for me. I then know that I want my relationship, and I want it to be a style sheet, and I want my type, and I want that text/CSS, and I want my href. With here, I can browse to where my style sheet is being saved. We know that's in the assets folder, and it's called styles. We see that Dreamweaver has finished the href for me, and I do not have to enter in any more data. All I have to do is close my tag. So I just connected a style sheet to my HTML file in a matter of seconds, way faster than we ever did in Notepad. So let's save our file and then hit live. We now see that a new element has popped up saying source code and styles. This means that we are connected to our style sheet, so we can close out of our styles.css. By using these two tabs, we are going to be able to do a lot of great things in Dreamweaver. By having the second tab, it would have made things very confusing. So now, when we go into our style, we can test our connection by going to Body, Background Color, and we could select our color from the color picker. So for this, I might want blue. This version of Adobe Dreamweaver is Adobe CS6. In Adobe CC, you will see that instead of showing all the web safe colors, it will show a full color picker. Personally, I prefer this option, however, both work. So now if we save our style sheet and we go over to our source code, we see that our body is blue. One of the cool things about how Dreamweaver works is we have a live menu that shows up at our side. So whenever we're making an edit, it will show up in that area. Of course, we'll have to save before anything happens, but still works pretty well. So let's go back over into our source code, and let's go ahead and set up a little basic HTML page. So in my body, I want to have my header, which is learning CSS. And let's go ahead and update our title as well. Let's also make a paragraph, and let's write some words. If we save our source code and refresh, we see that our background is still there. So let's go back over to our style sheet and remove our background color from the body. Now let's say that we wanted words to be strong or bolded. What we could do is write strong right here with HTML. This is not an incorrect way to stylize an HTML page. You could do it with CSS, however, this way works as well. So if we refresh this page, we see that words has now been bolded. What's very interesting about the way how the strong tag works is it is an inline tag. There are some elements that you can actually change if they're inlined or if they're boxed. For H1 tag through H5 tag, however, you are not able to change its display type from boxed to inline. So say that we want to remove some of the distance between learning CSS and these are some words. I happen to know that there's about 40 pixels of margin in between these are some words and learning CSS. So to do that, what we could do is go into our style and type paragraph margin top. And then we would set the value to be -35 pixels. We would then save. And we would see that our text is now right up on the H1 tag. So we could probably add on a couple more pixels. And maybe even a couple more. So now our text looks to be pretty well aligned with learning CSS. So let's talk a little bit about margin top. Margin and padding have multiple elements to them, being margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left. The easiest way that I remember these is with a compass. North, east, south, west. Top, right, bottom, left. So we can also write this as top, right, bottom, left by just doing margin, top, right, bottom, left. If we save this now, go into our source code, we see that we have now indented our paragraph. We could really indent this a lot by getting rid of our padding that is going to be on the right because it's not necessary. Getting rid of the bottom as well. And bumping out our left to 50. If we now refresh, we see that we have a huge indent on our paragraph. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between margin, border, and padding. The way how a margin works is it is how an element is pushing away from a container. So using this example, we have it so that the paragraph is pushing away from the wall. A border is literally something that is bordering around an element. It could be an invisible border that is making it look like it is pushing or being padded away, however it is just expanding the selection. And then we have padding, which padding is pushing the content deeper inside of its container. This is all very confusing to understand, and I'm going to try my best to explain it with our next couple of examples. So what I have done here is I've created a box that has a margin, a border, and also has a padding. Inside of the box, which we can see here is specified by div class box, I've added a span of words. If we go into my style sheet, we see that I have my box. My box is a perfect square of 400 by 400. I've set a margin, which is my box pushing away from the wall, by 50 pixels. I then have set a padding, which is inside of the box. So right where this purplish color starts, there's a padding that pushes in this words both here and up there. If we look, my margin also has a padding all around it. This is because of the fact that I said margin, which affects the full square, not just the left, right, top, or bottom. I've set it so that the color of my font is white, and I've set the background color of the square to be kind of a purplish color. I've added a border width of 10 pixels, and I've made it so that that color is red. I also have had to display the border style. If you do not set a border style, your border will not show up. So what I'm going to do now is remove my border style to explain how borders are affecting this box. So now that I've removed my border style, I want you to look at where this line is as I refresh this page. We see that what happened is my box was expanded by 10 pixels all around, but it was really just a border around it of 10 pixels. So if I was to add back in my border style, and I was to set it to say dotted, and refresh this page, we see that it has been pushed in once again. So that brings us to the last item that I want to talk about today, which are links. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my box. And I'm going to remove it from the style sheet. I'm also going to get rid of my style for my paragraph. Let's save my style sheet and go back over to our source code. So we see that learning CSS is set up and these are some words are. So let's go ahead and add a link inside here. Whenever you are linking outside of your own server, you must add http:// or https, which is used for a secure server. So we see that I've said that I want it to go to Google. So I'm going to say that this goes to Google and close up my A tag. We now see that if I refresh this page, we have Google. So let's load this up in Firefox and take a look at what really goes on with this link. We see that this link is a different color than what it was in Dreamweaver. That's because of the fact that I go to Google a lot. Google is one of my #1 pages, as well as most of everyone in the world's #1 pages that they go to. So because of that, this has been changed into a purplish color as opposed to the very nice blue that it was before. However, there are also websites where you have it so that when you hover over a different link, you are able to see the color change. So, what are we going to do this? It's actually very simple. We just need to remember love-hate. So, love-hate is a link, L, a visited, V, a hover, H, and a active, A. So now we have our link, which is the general link. We have visited, which is when a link has been visited. We have hover, which is when we hover over a link. And we have active, which is the moment that a link is clicked on. So, say that we wanted to make it so that this link was one color, this visited was one color, this hover was one color, and this active was one color. It's actually very simple. All that we're going to do is just set the color for each of these. So what I have done now is I've added in some CSS comments that are saying what all of these are doing. So if we open this up over in Firefox, we see that the link is green. The link is green because of the fact that it has been visited. When I hover over it, it is pink. That's because we set the color to be pink. When I click on this link, it becomes blue. and that is because of the fact that that is the active color. If I had never been to this website, it would have been a red color. To prove that, let's make a website that I could have never possibly gone to. So let's just say some random letters. Save that out, and we will load this up in Firefox. We now see that this is red. When I hover, it is still pinkish. When I click down, it is blue. Once I've visited this, we see that it is now green. So that explains everything that I want to let you guys know about CSS today. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know either in the comments below or by sending me an email. Have a great day, you guys. Bye.